Hello and welcome to the Crit to Block podcasts. We are your hosts, Eric Maylott
and Richard Lavery,
here to bring you in-depth conversation about competitive list building for Star Wars Legion. Today's conversation is going to be the first in a series of episodes focused on primary objectives and how to tailor your lists to specific ones.
We will be grouping these objectives together based on how similar they are in terms of how you want to play them. You'll see certain themes kind of carry between the objectives that we've paired together and the lists that you kind of want to bring with them. Today, we're going to be covering shifting priorities and recover the research. So, Eric, take us away.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start with shifting priorities. So, as a general overview, this one has 5 POIs spread across the middle of the board. And starting in round 2, if a player secures the POI, their opponent gets to move it a half stick in any direction. Pretty straightforward, but it is the most dynamic objective we have, probably, since it's always moving.
I would agree. And, before we get too much deeper, I want to just a general note. We're going to make 2 assumptions. One, that you've seen and read the objective at some point. So you know what the layout looks like. If you don't, feel free to go to Legion HQ 2, pull up any of the factions, start building a list, and pull up the primary objectives. The map and the card text are all in there. And the second is that you're going to understand kind of how scoring works in Legion between the need for contest or secure. Shifting priorities is a secure objective, so you must have the most unit leaders within the half stick of the POI. So, with that out of the way.
That is a great call out. Thank you, Richard. So, general strategies for shifting priorities. I think, in general, Richard and I don't always agree 100% on how to play these objectives. And, that's probably going to be evident as we go through this series of episodes. But I think it makes for pretty good discussion. Obviously, there's no one way to play Legion. There are ways that have shown a lot of success at things like tournaments and more competitive events. But there are definitely multiple ways you can play each of these objectives. So we're going to talk about them and kind of just go into depth or into discussions about building your lists around objectives. Because, Richard, I think there are 2 different approaches to list building. Again, before we get too far into this, I tend to start building a list and determine afterwards what objectives might be good at it. I think that is not necessarily the case that you do, as I can see by you shaking your head. So,
not one bit.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there are 2 schools of thought. You can build your list, figure out what it might be good at, or, Richard?
My personal preference is I'll choose a set of objectives I want to play and then build around it and kind of I'll normally have like a skeleton, maybe 60% of the list that I want to, it's pieces I want to play. And then that last 40% is kind of tailoring to what specific objective I want to be playing for that time period. Because I like to switch it up. We only have 6 right now. A lot of my lists are going to build the same way because I have a play style that I prefer. And some of the objectives are tailored more towards that play style. And so in order to really push into some of the others, we kind of need to build differently and start out from the get-go building differently.
Yeah, and so this discussion or this series of episodes is going to be using that Richard approach where we have objectives and then we're going to tailor lists to those objectives specifically and what units might excel in these objectives. So starting out with shifting priorities, this one, the easiest strategy is that, or the easiest takeaway is that mobility is kind of king in my eyes. The objectives or the POIs are always moving, so your units need to be good at moving. And that seems, if everything goes to plan, you're going to be moving at least once every turn because the POI is moving away from you, in theory. And you need to be able to threaten those lightly defended objectives that maybe go unsupported at some point during the game. And so a nice speed 3 unit, even like a speeder maybe, or just something that moves fast, to just go change which POI maybe you're focusing on. It's a very important or useful asset to have in this particular objective.
And what we mean by lightly defended objective is typically within shifting priorities, because your opponent gets to move the objectives that you secured, they're going to move the very far flank objectives, the two outermost ones, towards the board edge and towards a corner of the board edges. And effectively what this is doing is, in order for your opponent to continue scoring that objective, they have to remove a unit from the fight in and of its own accord. And so typically you'll only see one unit on those objectives in order to defend them. So something that's fast, like a speeder bike or a Mandalorian, that speed 3 profile, is able to redeploy to those soft flanks in order to take an opponent off an objective and then basically recapture it. Now, do you threaten losing that speed 3 100+ point Mandalorian unit in response? Yes, but you're also removing what your opponent is probably calculating as 1 victory point every turn. So there's kind of a give and take there that makes it worthwhile. In that kind of same vein, your army should be able to spread out with this objective and still fight. You're not looking to clump up and form a tight-knit ball. You need to be able to go places and kind of have these segmented fights across the board where, not everyone is contributing to the same location, like Close the Pocket, where everything's in the middle. You need to fight in probably thirds of the board if you want to cut it up into that kind of mathematical idea and really know where you're going.
And I think this objective in particular, I come up with the plans for these episodes. So obviously I maybe picked some of my favorites to start with here. And I think Rebels in particular are really good at shifting priorities. Usually, obviously there are Rebel lists you can build that wouldn't be good at it, but we are pretty good at spreading out and still functioning on our own. We don't have token sharing like clones. We don't have the order passing like droids. We already kind of exist on our own and can function as separate kind of units on the battlefield. And so I think this one in particular just plays into those strengths. And then, because we're kind of spread out, another general strategy is just to kind of pick your fights. You do tend to get spread out in this one, but that doesn't mean you should go for all 5 points and try and score 5 points in one round. That is spreading yourself too thin unless something really weird is happening in your game.
And it's possible that does happen. I've played games of shifting where an opponent's let me score 4 points in back-to-back turns. Now, was that the best idea? Probably not, but
that's 8 points out of 12 for the game.
Well, things happen. But really, you kind of want to choose 3 points that you're going to throw the majority of your army against, right? Whichever ones you want, that's fine. But basically, those are the ones you're going to fight over. And then I typically pick a 4th point that I'm going to send something towards that I've kind of identified by how I've deployed to my opponent that those are your objectives. These are my objectives. We're going to fight over the center. And that one unit is going to go off on the flank and it's going to threaten and distract and hopefully take resources from my opponent. That gives you kind of a more castle-y approach to this objective, but that can go out the window really quick because you have that long friendly territory that you can move onto the board from. And if your opponent decides to move on primarily from their left-hand side, then this plan kind of goes out the window because it requires both players to be kind of on the same page almost of we're both going to be coming in from our middle to right side, and then we're going to both be sweeping around and facing off in kind of those 3 middle points. If your opponent has a different plan, you have to be able to identify that pretty quickly and then adjust from there.
Right. This objective feels a little different than some of the other objectives because in my mind, there isn't necessarily that safe point like you might see on a Recover the Research or, Bunker Assault is an easy one. There are 2 on your side, there's 2 on your opponent's side. These are all kind of in the middle. like you said, there can be kind of a mutual agreement between opponents when you deploy, like, hey, these are my safe ones. Those are yours. Like, come at me if you want, but these are mine. But like you said, if there isn't that mutual agreement, then there isn't a safe option. Do you still find yourself having that like back cap type unit that you might for other objectives, or how does that work?
Yeah, I always have at least one kind of like back capper type unit built into my list. It's usually either a naked core or a sniper or something of that nature that can still participate in the fight. There's a lot of objectives between the primary and the secondary right now where you either want something to live till the end of the game because it's like a marked target or something, or you just need someone on like a weird point on the board to just guard an objective. Destroy enemy base would be a great example of that. And I think shifting priorities really falls into this, right? So I was kind of talking early on about how those flank objectives typically go to the edge of the board and then into a corner. You don't want a 90 plus point unit sitting on that. I would much rather have, if I'm thinking about a clone list, right? I'd rather put 54 points in that, 56 points in that direction. There's a lot of options here depending on what faction you're playing. But even like a 40-point rebel trooper that's going and scoring you 1 victory point every turn, if they score you 4 victory points over the course of the game, that rebel trooper has gotten its points in value more times over than it should have.
Yeah, I was talking to a local last time I was out, and he was playing slingers for the first time. He's like, I don't really know what to do with slingers. And I was like, they're just there to sit on an objective. It's 35 points of value. And so this objective and some of the other ones that we'll talk about are exactly what you want that random slinger unit to do. Just, hey, go over to the edge, try not to annoy anyone to make them shoot you, and just score that point over and over again. And it's 35 points off in the corner, but you're getting crazy value out of that really cheap unit. And that's what they're there for.
One of the other things I want to point out here, too, is it's not the end of the world if you let your opponent score first. So because these objectives are mobile, they're not staying in the same spot. If you let your opponent score on round 2, you get to kind of reposition the battlefield for what turn 3 is going to look like. And so one of the things that I like to do, I've been playing a lot of gun lines lately, but I've also been playing a lot of charge-based units, whether it's riot troopers or arc troopers, take your pick. Letting the opponent score on 2 and 3, you can start pushing 2 to 3 of the objectives kind of close together. So as long as you're scoring 2, you're usually pretty okay. By pushing objectives together, you can concentrate the field, and then you have some of your larger based units, your LAT, your GAV, your snail tank, can more easily contest 2 objectives at the same time. And so you're really kind of doubling up on the efficiency of those units and making them a significant problem for your opponent. Snails are extremely hard to remove from the table. LATs, hit or miss, depending on how the dice are swinging. And so really you're giving up. Don't be afraid to give up on 2 in order to really capitalize on 3 and 4. If you're giving up 2 and 3, maybe readjust your strategy a little bit and look to how you might be able to salvage a little bit more on that turn 3.
And don't give up 4 points each of those rounds. If you're conceding points in this big brain move that Richard is talking about, try and limit it to 3.
The only caveat I'll put on that is you want to stay 1 behind your opponent. It's kind of the thought process on this. So if you're giving up 4 on primary, you better be scoring at least 2 on secondary. And there's definitely objectives that allow you to do that, right? So bring them to heal. You could score those points there fairly easily. If, again, for some reason, destroy enemy base. But the point is you're only 1 behind if you're going to be giving up points like this and not contesting immediately off the rip. And so just be aware of how many points you're falling behind if you're going to go for this kind of strong arm turn 3 play.
Yeah. And we will eventually do a series on secondary objectives as well. And so I think after doing the series on primaries, we can get into some of those discussions about how certain secondaries interact with certain primaries. So we maybe can talk about primaries to or secondaries to focus on if you are playing shifting and maybe conceding a point or two in turn 2 and how you can make up for that, like Richard's talking about. But for the time being, that seems like a good recap or a good synopsis of general strategies. Let's talk about units that are really good at this objective. So
Absolutely.
the first thing that comes to my mind, having played the list I played at Rocky Top, Jin and Lando are just money on this one. If that POI moves because you secured it, Jin gets a free move as long as she doesn't get an order. So she can immediately be contesting again before the round even starts, which is awesome. And then Lando, again, just hands out free moves either to himself or if you match pips to any unit on the board. And again, it's just another way to keep up with that POI that's on the move without having to spend any actions to do it. So that's the first thing that pops to my mind. I love those two units for that reason, not just on this objective, but for the mobility things in general.
And I think kind of more generalized units that are good at this objective are ones that are fast. So anything that has a speed 3 value. So that's almost every speeder in the game for the most part. Mandalorians of any flavor, things that get lots of movement range like snails and buses because of their base size, all really enjoy this because they have that mobility that they're able to play. Anything that gets free moves, like you were saying with Jin and Lando, you know, your speeder bikes with compulsory fall into that same kind of strategy. Sorry.
There's a cat.
There are cats everywhere. They love attention. So, yes, things with speed 3 are really, really good. Things with free moves are also excellent at this because you're not wasting your actions to move onto that point. And then anything that gets a bonus for moving. Those are your units with tactical, agile, or any of the free attack action. So like charge, relentless, or steady. Since Eric pointed out you have to be moving, you might as well get something for that move action that you have to be taking, whether that's a free attack or a token.
Yeah, exactly. Any other specific units you think are really good, or should we just talk about some lists that maybe are built to excel at this mission?
I do think that there's a like brawler type units are also good at this, but less so than they are at some of the other objectives.
Okay, that's fair. So let's go into some lists. I can kind of bring up, I think I've talked about this list before, but I will bring it up again. The list that I played at Rocky Top this year, my Rogue One and the Rogue One list, it's got Lando, Jin, Cassian, K2, and then Rebel Troopers with an Ion, 2 Rebel Troopers with Ions, Captain and Recon, Super Squad of Fleets, Rebel Vets with Overwatch, the Extra Man and the Heavy, Mark II, 2 Sleepers with HQ Uplinks, and the 1 Slinger Squad. I guess this is an updated version from my Rocky Top one. I didn't realize, but all the same, it's a super squad of slingers because of the mean things that Matt and actually just Matt. I'm going to call you out directly, Matt, if you listen. The mean things you did to me specifically and Dan with your 10 minis of Ewoks in one squad. So it's, again, it just focuses on that mobility. It wants to be on the move. It loves moving. My Rebel Troopers get free dodges when they move. Jin gets a free move. Lando's handing out moves. All the things. It just, I don't know, it's a good quality list. Like I mentioned on one of our previous episodes, I think the list is sound. I made some tactical errors at Rocky Top and didn't perform as well as I was hoping. But this is kind of an example of a list that you might build if you're looking to excel at shifting priorities.
Mm-hmm. You've got that mobility you were talking about with Lando and Jin. You've got the mobility and doubling up on actions with Sleeper Cell because they have tactical. You've got that piece to kind of sit off on the flank, whether that's Cassian or the Ewok Slingers. Cassian in sniper mode can still participate in the fight, even if he's on the other side of the board. So yeah, definitely a lot of good pieces there that are beneficial for shifting priorities.
And I will say, I don't remember if I talked about this, but the standby castling with the Mark IIs and then the Rebel Vets with Overwatch and Lando, like if people are going to be moving because the POIs are moving, standby castles become important. And if you lean into that, that's also another strategy that we haven't talked about yet. So, Richard, what, pray tell, have you brought us today for shifting priorities?
Well, the theme seems to be Rocky Top because I brought my Rocky Top list, adjusted for the points update. But for those of you unfamiliar, it's Clone Commander Cody, a Clone Commander with IO, Clone Trooper Infantry with Z6, one with a shotgun, 2 with nothing on them. Then I've got 2 ARC Troopers with Jedi Guardian, an ARC Trooper with Ahsoka Tano, 2 Laser Cannon ATRTs, and then the LAT with Clone Shock Trooper Pilot, Bunker Buster Shells, Armor Piercing Shells, Link Targeting Array, and then the new addition is the Door Gunners. So
this isn't relevant to our conversation, but it is shocking to me how few upgrades are on this list right now. Like looking at mine, and things have 2 to 3 upgrades on every single unit almost, and you have 1 at most, except for the LAT.
It's to get to 12 activations with Republic, you have to run a little slim. Yeah. And I really wanted 12 activations specifically with this list. I think you can easily, if you want a little bit more meat to the list, you can drop one of those Clone Trooper infantry squads and you have 56 points of upgrades you can spread across the rest. I think this new version needs a little bit of refining, but that's neither here nor there. The reason this is good at shifting priorities is kind of twofold. One, it gets onto the board really quickly, and so you take up a lot of space. ARC Troopers having Scout 2, the LAT being able to dump a unit up the board with Transport, the ATRTs also having Scout, the LAT just being a giant base and fairly fast, really gives you options for where you want to fight, and then a little bit of opportunity to kind of redeploy if you need to on turn 2. It's got those backcappers we were talking about. It's got the ability to participate in range across the field. It's got units that can move in and fight over specific objectives. And you've got 12 activations on the board still. So that's, I think we might have glossed over this point a little bit. Since you have to secure, you do need quantity on the board as well. And there's a pretty significant difference between 10 and 12 activations. You know, if we think about in some of the popular lists that are out there right now, like the 6-act Republic list really struggles with shifting priorities because they can't cover the entire board.
I don't know if that counts as popular, though. That is one crazed man in the UK doing well and some other crazed people trying to follow.
More people are trying it now.
Yeah.
And really all it takes is one person to find success for a list to blow up across Legion in general.
That's fair.
I think it's a matter of time. But anyway, this is what I tend to bring in terms of list composition and idea for shifting priorities. Really, I'm choosing 3 objectives. We're going to brawl over them, and you're going to have to deal with 3 ARC Troopers with Pierce and a shotgun and a LAT. If you can deal with that, you probably win. But if you can't, it's going to be a rough time for you.
All right. So I guess we can move on to recover the research.
Sounds good to me.
Mission overview. There are 6 POIs on the board. As a reminder, 3 just outside of each friendly territory. And VPs are awarded based on how many POIs you can test to a maximum of 3 each round if you contest 4 or more POIs.
3 victory points per round.
Yes, thank you. 3 victory points. What's your general strategy on this one, Richard? I think we maybe differ a little more on this one than recover the or shifting priorities.
Yeah, so with this one, I think there's 2 mindsets that you can come to the table with this one, in my opinion, depending on what style list you have. Option 1, you're going to guard the 3 objectives that are on your side of the board. Your safe isn't the right term on Recover the Research because your opponent has to be crossing over. But basically, your 3 on your side of the board, you're going to be having someone sit on them all game. And then you're going to choose one of the objectives of your opponents, and you're going to send a unit that way. It's probably going to be one of the flanks. And even more specifically, it's probably the one on your right side, your opponent's left side, because that's the farthest out in the corner and the least likely to be contested by your opponent if they're not going for this strategy. The other option, and this is kind of the one I prefer, is you're going to choose 4 objectives in kind of a rhombus pattern. So if you're looking at the card, it's either the 4 on middle left or the 4 on middle right. So 2 of yours, 2 of your opponents, you're going to have your kind of gun line pieces sit on yours, and you're going to have your offensive brawling pieces go charge your opponents. And basically what you're trying to do there is keep the fighting to a very designated quarter of the board in order to maximize all of your units' potential to assist in the fight. Again, this is one of those objectives where the things on the far flanks might not be participating every turn, so you want to get the most out of every action.
Yeah, and I think I agree that those are 2 good options on how to play this one. I think as a Rebel player in particular, there's a third option that I maybe not tend to play, but that I have played before. And like we talked about, Rebels are really good at spreading out. And I think if you can secure 2 or 3 of the objectives on yours, or like not secure in the literal sense, but if you can kind of hold your own on 2 or 3 of your home points, you can send out a flanker like Jyn to go just contest a random point off her own because she's so good at being on her own. Or you can send someone like Mando, and Din is again very good at being on his own. He's much more survivable with his surging red saves and can also mess people up with his attack profile. And I feel like this one, because all you have to do is contest, you also have the option for, you can sneak some speeders, save them for late round and just launch them to a point somewhere else on the board. And I think they can go steal some points that way. Like obviously there is a maximum to the number of victory points you can score on this, so you don't need to contest more than 4 points. But I think if you are contesting 4 or 5 points, there are only so many things, hopefully, that your opponent can kill in the next round. So it's kind of like an insurance policy, but a big caveat on speeders right now is I think speeders are good at something like Recover the Research, but they're only good if they're alive, and keeping them alive in Legion is currently a little tricky. So they're good in theory. I like them in theory.
I think the points decrease in Strike and Fade is going to help speeders a lot. We haven't had, at the time of filming, we haven't had enough time to see that play out in reality yet.
Right.
More information to come later.
Yeah. We will see how big of an impact Strike and Fade makes on speeders. I think for this objective in particular, it could be very good. You attack and you Strike and Fade away to an objective or a POI that is out of dangers. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, but out of contested territory, so to speak.
Well, so the thing about Strike and Fade with this, right, is we talked about the action efficiency a little bit, where you need to make every action count. And Strike and Fade for 5 points is giving you an action back while you're still allowing you to perform the attack action. So you're able to get to where you need to be while not losing anything to perform that extra move, because you're doing it after the attack for 5 points. I think it has some value here. I'm not sold on speeders yet, but I think they're starting to come back. I mean, swoop bikes are a nuisance. Travis is playing nothing but swoops right now, and it's a thorn under my side. So maybe in a month's time, my tune will change, and I'll be cursing speeder bikes for how efficient they are at these objectives. kind of in that same vein, though, this is another objective set where mobility and deployment keywords are really important. There's kind of two coins here you need to make sure you're keeping track of. One, getting to your opponent's objective in order to contest 4 and score the maximum VPs. And then the other one is, so that's the mobility part of it. The other is survivability and making sure that you're still alive and on your objectives that you're trying to score and you're not suppressed or panicked. And that kind of rolls into the next point too of good courage and staying out of line of sight is kind of really important here. We had our last episode on support commanders. We talked about Inspire, Courage 3, how important those were. This is one of those objectives where a lot of the time you see players not go for finishing off an objective holder, but instead suppressing and panicking them so they don't count in terms of holding that. So some of those suppressive style lists out there could be really efficient at that.
So Richard, for this objective, is there any validity to this strategy of sitting on your 3 points and just making sure you kill anything that tries to come contest one of your objectives?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Oh, okay. That was not mentioned in one of your options above. So you don't necessarily need to try and contest 4. You could play very castly, play Old Legion, as it were, and just try to murder anything that comes at you.
It is possible. I don't recommend it unless you are confident in what your gun line can do.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to make, to guarantee you can kill things is really difficult.
Yes. It is possible, because if you're just looking at aiming and shooting and you're using that as your way to kind of build that action efficiency, you're dug in on your 3 points, you're not being shifted off them, you're just trying to destroy whatever comes in at you. Force users are really popular right now, and Force users eat gun lines alive. So unless you have a response to them, this can backfire very quickly. The other thing too is, because you don't need to secure, you only need to contest. If your opponent slips in a cheeky unit that was hiding behind line of sight on the last or second to last activation of the turn, you're not able to remove them in time. And now your opponent's scoring up on victory points over you. Mm-hmm. I do think you can kind of force your opponent to play the same game a little bit if your gun line is scary enough, but it's a gamble. This is one of those objectives, though, where you are typically keeping scoring parity with your opponent for the most part. You'll either both score 2 or both score 3 victory points. And so this is where you really want to keep secondary objectives in mind, probably more so than any other objective, in my opinion. The secondaries are great, but I think this is where you're really going to win the game on secondaries over primaries, unless something has happened with the dice and one person is just so far up ahead that the other can't come back. At which point, secondaries are a moot point, right?
Did you say a moo point? Was that a milk joke?
Moot.
Oh, okay.
Not moo. I can't even get away from this on my own show.
So, Richard, what kind of units do you think excel at this? I mentioned a little bit about speeders already. Speeders with an asterisk. Mm-hmm. I think we also alluded to things with dug in. I think you used the phrase without actually talking about the upgrade, but that upgrade exists now. And this is one of the objectives that you can be scoring in your own territory. So I think that upgrade alone gives you a lot more options for this objective in particular.
It does. And because you don't need to be moving and you're happy being where you are, dug in prepared position units make a lot of sense on this objective, whether that's your Mark IIs, your Shores, or your soon to be coming out Clone Marksman. I think they should be coming out this quarter, so within the next 2 months. We'll see. I think those units are going to be very difficult to remove. Duggan seems like a pretty good keyword the few times I've played with it. Or upgrade, it's not a keyword. So I think those units are going to do really well. And then because you want that staying power, anything with high courage, especially if it's a commander and giving that to everyone else, or those surging red saves that are out there, like the Bane of My Existence, Mandalorians, Bad Batch gets a good recommendation here. And then once again, this is one of those objectives where, as is, so shifting priorities counts because you can move the objectives, but as they're laid out, this is one of 2, I believe. I might be wrong.
Is it only 2?
I think it's only 2, but I might be wrong.
Okay.
Objectives, because I think it's Bunker Assault, and I think it's Recover the Research, where if you have an oblong base, like a snail tank, a bus...
Is Close the Pocket tank, not close enough?
Close the Pocket isn't close enough.
Oh, all right.
It's mathematically, you're like a quarter inch, I think.
But don't bring math into this, Richard.
You play a game of probability. Anyway, if you can hold the diagonal points and contest 2 with a single model, that is extremely strong because the rest of your army can be focused on then holding the other 2 points that you need to. Now, that is extremely terrain dependent, so don't expect to do that in every game you play. With the tables starting to get denser in terms of terrain, it's going to be less likely that you're actually able to do this, but keep it in mind if you're running those units. Yeah,
and I think Richard mentioned the surging red saves for flankers. I would put Jin in that category, like flankers in general. Kind of like I said, the way I think about this objective, where you can send someone out on a flank just to go snag a POI and contest it, either unexpectedly or just to the point where your opponent can't really do anything because there's other stuff going on. But, Din is really good at this as well as he is at shifting priorities. So, and then I swear I was thinking of somebody else, but I'm drawing a blank now.
It's like Jin, and I know that.
Yeah, Jin is so good.
Okay, well, show us what list you cooked up.
Yes. So, I cooked up this one for Recover the Research specifically. I did not include Jin, despite my aforementioned love of her, but we do have Din, and he's there to be your flanker. We also have Sabine and Clan Ren, because I know Richard hates Mandos, and sometimes I just like to steer into it to make him deal with it. So those would be kind of your flanker, go contest opponents' POIs units. And then to support that on the back end, we've got Leia and her portable scanner and improvised orders, backing up 2 units of Rebel Troopers with the ion gun. I have been loving the Super Fleet Squads lately, so I have to include one of them in my list. They could be holding home points and just asking someone to come at you because they have to, or you could send them forward and help contest POIs on the other side of the board as well. And then sleeper cells, obviously, because they're still really good. After the points update, just run them naked. I don't think the astromech is as needed. Ideally, I would run one of them with a strike team leader to give them a free dodge every round, and that kind of acts as the astromech. I couldn't make that work in this one because Sabine wants up close more than she wants strike team leader. And then to round it out, we have 2 FDs with the barrage generator and Duggan, just sitting there handing out suppression. Like we kind of talked about, suppressive lists can be really good at this because you can't score a POI if you're panicked. So having 2 big dishes in the back, just handing out 2 suppression each shot.
And those dishes are going to be hard to remove.
Yeah, with Duggan. I still haven't put that on the table yet since they dropped, and I want to.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, seems real good. So that's I would call it a framework. This is 1,000 points that you could do, but I would recommend tailoring it to whatever you want to play. But this is kind of your structure to build around, or an idea of a structure. Richard, I heard you like pizza and my pizza dishes. Tell me about what you brought for us.
Well, if we're talking pizza, I've got the list I'm working on right now, the Middle Management Pizza Party. So this
Such
is
a good name.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is Director Krennic, General Veers, Agent Callus, Bosk, 3 shore troopers with the heavy weapon, an extra body, and Duggan, 3 mortars, 2 snow troopers with Ion and Imperial March, and a Death Trooper with Overwatch and the DLT. It's 13 activations. There is a variety of upgrades on the characters. There's 2 copies of IO. There's electro binoculars on both. Strict Orders is in there. On the Hunt and targeting scopes on Bosk because that's near mandatory. And then Strike Team Leader to always give the Death Troopers a name. This list is one of those ones where I would be a little bit more confident in that Gunline's ability to hold, and I'm just trying to be on 3 objectives instead of 4, and then win on secondaries. This list puts out a ton of suppression. It's 16 suppression on average turn 1. If you get the mortar standby shots, it's 22. If you're really cheeky, you can pull out 24, but that's not going to happen. So you're layering this suppression onto your opponent. That's going to make it really difficult for them to get across the field in any sort of efficient way, which is going to slow them down and allow you to kind of pick at them until they get to you. There's pretty significantly sized dice pools. The shore troopers are each rolling 7 black, 2 white with critical 1. And on any given turn, they typically have 3 to 4 aims. And so the dice pools end up hurting. Death troopers, no slouch. Snow troopers with Ion, also no slouch. And with Imperial March, can actually get across the board pretty fast with a speed 1 move into a speed 2 move and still get the shot. So there's a lot in this list that has some options. We talked about that scoring parity and needing other ways to win on this objective, and one of them is double bounty, which is a way to make up some of those points that you hopefully aren't falling behind, but like puts you up a little bit. So I really like this list. It's a work in progress still, but it's been really effective on the table so far.
Yeah, seems great. I will say, it seems like if your opponent just had a giant bus or some ATRTs to hide their things behind, your suppression is laughable.
Yes,
but then you blow those things up.
Those units aren't typically surviving turn 1 because pretty much everything in the list either throws a ton of dice with impact or has critical built in. Mm-hmm. And so it's critical.
I'm not
3.
saying it's a foolproof way to beat that list. I'm just saying,
sure.
You talk about suppression turn 1 or turn 2, it's like, yes, but you need to be shooting non-vehicles to give out suppression.
Mm-hmm. That's true. But if you are shooting vehicles, they're typically exploding pretty quick. So tomato.
Tomatoes or grapes, yes.
Okay.
I don't know. It's late. It's past my bedtime.
Okay. Tell me what you're into. Let's wrap this episode up.
Stuff we're into. Thank you, Richard.
We've covered the 2 primary objectives that we're talking about this week. In general, let's do a real quick recap before we get into it. Both of them, you want things that are mobile in your list. You want to be able to get across the board. You want keywords that are going to be supported by move actions like tactical, steady, relentless. We could go on. Mm-hmm. Take those keywords. And you want a little bit of durability because you're going to be taking flak, either fighting over one of the points and shifting, or you need to be able to survive on a point and be there at the end of the turn on Recover the Research. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, and I think for me, flankers in particular are a big one for both of these. If you have a unit that fits some of the description that Richard just said, just send them out there. Help them go find something while the rest of your army does the thing and somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that is our 2 objectives. Stuff we're into. Richard, I will start this time. since I made you start last time because I knew you had a boring one, although monumental. Congratulations again.
So weird.
Peek behind the curtain here, we are recording after only 1 week and giving myself more time to edit this. So I haven't really done that much, to be honest, in the past week. My wife and I have been watching Shrinking. So I guess the thing I'm into is we watched a couple episodes of Shrinking on Apple TV. It is actually very good and delightful on season 2. And what came in the mail today, I got this honkin' box of another Kickstarter that I backed. It's called Nature, and it is a massive box. Very excited to dig into that. It's basically just a replacement of Evolution, if anyone has played Evolution. But it is an updated version of it. It has a whole new... It's got a facelift. It's got a bit of a rules rework, I think, to more line up with Oceans. I know we have played Oceans together. It's a little more forgiving than the original Evolution, which I enjoy.
Very nice. I like it. For me, I started reading a new book series this week. I finished the first book, I think, in like 2 days. It was good. I immediately got the next 2. So I'm reading the second one.
Nice. And what book is this?
The 5th season.
Okay.
Good series.
All right.
I don't know. I like magic. I like fantasy. There's a little sci-fi in this too. So...
Nice.
We'll see where it
goes.
goes.
I like it. I love a good book. So to close things out, I guess we never really promote ourselves where to find us if you want to reach out to us. So maybe we could throw that in here to end this episode. Richard, where can people find us again?
Sure. You can tag us on the main Legion Discord. I'm Sneaky Leviathan.
Yeah.
I don't know. Your Discord handle is Ginger Ale, I believe.
I think I'm Ginger Ale, spelled like gin. Obvious gin, the character, not the drink, for obvious reasons. If you've heard this podcast, I guess.
The other thing, feel free to shoot us an email anytime at critblog@gmail.com. Comment on any of our videos. We check and respond to all of those as well. So
yeah. And for our local folks, if you're in the North Carolina Legion Discord, I pay way more attention to that one than the main Legion Discord. So that is probably a better place to find us.
We typically get at least some feedback and some additional conversation on our episodes in that Discord. So thank you to everyone who's listening and supporting us.
Absolutely. And so with that, we can round it out. And don't forget to crit block.